What? איפה? מצוין. Okay. So we'll switch to English. Good evening. Thank you for coming. It's a great pleasure and honor to be here. Thank you. My name is Gil Keret. I'm a father for 3 kids, 3 girls, Gal, Michal, and Alona, and also a CEO and co-founder of Brooks Keret. Few words about us. 23 years ago, we started our operation providing financial services mainly to startups and high-tech companies. During the last 23 years, we saw many startups. We found them in any stage of their life. And now I will try to give you some tips and some advices from our experience seeing many companies making many mistakes, all of us making mistakes. And today we are going to speak about budgeting and more specific about how try to avoid mistakes within budgeting because we are all making mistakes. As I said before to a few of you, it's very difficult to teach or to show how to create a full budget in 30 minutes. But we will do our best to talk about typical and common mistakes that I saw in all those budgets. And of course, I'll show you some kind of examples of one budget. Okay, because every company, every venture is a different budget, but the idea behind it is the same. Okay, so if we are talking about startups, the definition of startup, and I'm sure that all of you know it, it's a newly emerged company. We are talking about a young company that aims to meet a marketplace need by developing or offering an innovative product, process, or service. Meaning that first of all, we should think and found the marketplace, see that there is a need, and mention less, we should have some kind of innovation or something new. Okay? I'll give you a small example. We had a wonderful company 10 years ago. They developed amazing product, and at the end of the day, they finished to produce it, manufacture it, everything. They didn't sell even 1 unit. Why? Because the market didn't want it. Okay, so it's very important to think and to find that there is a demand, or to think that there will be. Maybe you can create a demand. Okay? But in order to run a startup, you should need money, and a lot of money, because developing costs money, right? And if we need money, what we do? Raise money. Okay? Every startup in every stage is looking for money. Okay? There is no startup, even if you finish your current round, you're already thinking about the next round. Okay? From who? Do you know what is the triple F here for? Someone? Yes?
Friends, family, friends, and fools, no?
I wait to this answer. It's not fools. You're right. It's family, friends, and fools. I don't like the fools. Instead of that, I put founders. Okay, so it's friends, family, and founders.
Kind of fools.
If they are fools, they will not run a startup. Okay, but seriously, at the first stage, when every startup sitting in the garage in the bootstrap stage, eating their saves and looking for money and pray to God, this is the first step. After that, you can, find your investors through private investors, angels, which are wealthy people who have enough money to play in this scene. By the way, if you will ask an Israeli younger than 30 years old, they will be sure that the startup scene here in Israel always exists. However, looking back 25 years ago, there were hardly no startups here. However, there still has a lot of R&D, a lot of innovation processes. They exist within the big corporates. Okay? So why all the things start? Think about think about a Navy aircraft carrier sailing now 000, heading north. And now they need to change course to 054, okay? And now compare it to a small speedboat doing the same, okay? That's the reason. In a big corporates, you can still find a lot of R&D departments, etc. Any change, any action, anything needs a lot of bureaucratical process, a lot of approvals, etc. That's the reason why all the startups start, one of the reasons why all the startups start, okay? And of course, incubators and many more options to raise money. But the more important questions is how much and when, okay? The typical answer to when is whenever you can, but that's not the answer. And how much is also important, and that's the reason why we are going to speak about budgeting, okay? Because how much and when can influence a lot about everything in the company. Mainly about how portion of the company you will give once you raised, not in the proper and the right time. Okay? Do you know what a dilution is? Dilution? Dilul in Hebrew? Okay? Let's draw some example, okay, about that. I'll explain to you in 2 seconds. Do we have a... No, info. Oh, sorry. Okay, let's assume small example. We got two founders, F1 and F2. Each one of them has 500 shares. We're talking now, it's a very simple example, and we are talking about common shares, nothing complicated, okay? So it means that the total equity now is 1,000 shares, okay? Each one of them has 50%, okay? And now they are looking for money, and they got an investor who wants to invest, let's say, $1 million US, pre-money of 1 million, okay? You know what's pre-money, post-money? I'll explain. When you calculate the valuation of the company and the portion of shares that you will give to the investor, okay, you need to say what is the value of the company right now. Before you got the money, it's pre-money. You said, okay, from now it's 1 million US, for an example. So it means that each one of them has 50% of it, 500K each, okay? Once the investor will invest his 1 million, the company valuation will raise in a 1 million, right? So it will be 2 million, one in cash and one the valuation, the idea of the valuation. So the company now worth 2 million, right? So what will be his part? 50%, okay? Because now the company will issue him shares that will be equal to 50%. Means that each one of them will still have their 500 and he will get this one. This investor will get 1,000 shares, and now the total is 105,000, right? And each one of them still he will get 50, right? And those two will have 25%, each one, right? Clear? Now.
Why not 2,000?
Sorry, 2,000. I always have in my mind that he will invest only 500. So it's 2,000, okay? And each one of them now will have 25%. But from valuation, from money, they still have the same. Because before the investment, they had $500,000, right? Now they got 25%, but of 2 million. So it's the same 500. But here, they went down from 50% to 25%. This is dilution, okay? Now, at the next round, the valuation will go up and higher. Maybe, for sure, if the valuation will be much higher, even though that the 25% will even go down, still from money, from value, it will cost them more. You understand? Because if, for example, next round will be pre-money of 6 million, and they will raise only 1 million or so, they will be diluted to approximately 20%. We can calculate it, but just to get the idea, 20%, okay? 20% of 6 million is 1.2, right? It's much more than they have now, okay? So, as you can see, this is something that, oops, sorry. I told you it's complicated. And when we spoke about how much, and then I'll show you within the budget, but when it's also very important, because if we will raise money not in the right time, I'll give you an example. You're sitting at home doing the bootstrap stage, having nothing, no investors, nothing, okay? But you still didn't reach a very major point, milestone, major paying customer, proof of concept, prototype, whatever. It depends on your specific company, okay? If you will raise money before that, the valuation will be very low. If you will wait to a major point when you made a huge progress within your business, the valuation should be higher. Okay, so if you can manage it and try to take a deep breath and wait till you'll get this major milestone. Okay? And how much is not just keeping the valuation. Think about the next rounds. Sometimes it's worth to raise small amount that will allow you to run fast, to reach another critical point, and then you will raise the big round of investment. Okay? You understand what I'm talking about? Okay, great. So how much and when, this is the idea behind budgeting. So if we are talking about budget, this is the explanation of what is budget. Budget is a managerial tool. I'll explain it in a minute. It's a quantitative expression of a financial plan for a defined period of time, include planned revenues, costs, and expenses. Again, it's a managerial tool, and you can look at it in two targets. One, as I said before, is to plan your round, to see how much money do you need, achieving a specific point that you want to move from A to B. How much money do you need for that? Okay. However, once you raised your money and you got your funds, okay, it is very important to control it and see on a monthly basis where are you standing. Over budget, under budget, okay? It is very, very important. That's the reason why whenever you have a budget and you got investments, every logical investor will ask to receive on a monthly basis budget versus actual report, that will show him what you said that you are going to do and what actually you did. And it's very important also for you as a founder, as a CEO of a company, to know exactly where are you standing from cash point of view. Okay? However, as I said before, everybody is making mistakes, and you know, the idea is not to avoid mistakes. Of course, you should try to avoid, but to learn from mistakes. Mistakes that you did and mistakes that you learn from others. So now I'll try to speak about few typical mistakes that I saw within many other budgets that we were involved with, and try to give you some kind of idea from what to avoid. Okay? And of course, at the end, if you'll have other examples for mistakes that you faced, if you have some questions, we'll be able to discuss it together. Okay? Shalom. The first mistake. As you know, most of the investments are made in US dollars, mainly in Israel, but all over the world. But we are acting in Israel and we are operating in Israel, and at least 70, 75, 80% of our expenses are in shekels, right? I'll tell you a story, true story. I don't know if you remember, but 10 years ago, the US dollar's exchange rate was 4.5 shekels for $1, okay? At that time, one of our customers signed a term sheet raising $750,000 US dollars. From the time the term sheet was signed till he saw the money at the bank, 60 days, which it makes sense. 60 days makes sense. At the time he got the money, the US dollar exchange rate fell down to 3.9. He lose 450,000 shekels just from that, okay? He can't do nothing against that, okay? Because from such amount you don't go to any financials, defense, etc., and other tools. But once you got the fund, try to avoid such situation. How? Once you're budgeting your company, you know exactly what are your currencies, what are your currency of operation. Since, as I said, we are in Israel, most of the funds will be used in shekels. Immediately convert 75, 80, I don't know, you will calculate it, but convert it to shekels, put it in a deposits, you'll get almost nothing, but still, you will keep yourself from such crises, okay? Keep US dollars if you need for foreign travels, for exhibitions, for whatever you need. As you know that you're gonna need that, keep it in dollars, it's okay. But if 70% in shekels, put it in shekels, okay? Another not mistake, but things that you need to be aware of is the period. If we are talking about budget as a managerial tool for ongoing running your company, it should be for an annual from January to the end of December, okay? And it should be made month by month. At the end of the year, you can accumulate it and see all the figures, but you should do it on a monthly base and not on an annual base. For example, many people, not many, but there are some entrepreneurs who made the budget and they are thinking on an annually base. For example, I will spend $100,000 for traveling abroad. Why 100,000? How many travels you will have within the year? How many people? Where to? To the States, to Europe, to the Far East? How long each one of these travels will be? Calculate it bottom up. Don't go with ballparks. Make it bottom up, and I'll show you later on in the Excel how we are doing that, trying to figure out exactly these figures. Okay? So it is very important not to just determine a ballpark of expenses. It's very important to calculate it every month and see exactly where are you standing. Okay? And within the period, since we are talking about startups, we are talking about growth. Many mistakes that I saw, people are not taking into calculations the rapid growth of a startup. For example, you are two entrepreneurs sitting in your garage, and now you decided to move to some kind of working space like WeWork or here, and according to your budget you are going to be 4 people within 2 months and 10 within 6 months. At the end of the year you will be 20. Okay, it's very typical to startups. But the difference between 2 people to 20 is huge. It's not just the salary. People forget that once you have 20 employees, it's a complete different business. Okay? There are many expenses related to headcount, to people. For example, even once you hire an employee, you need to buy him beverage. You need to, even the rent. Okay? Sometimes you think that you can stay in WeWork or so, but you can't, because if you are 20 people, it costs fortune and you won't be there. Okay? Put it in the budget. Calculate it, how many square meters you will need for your future employees. More than that, even if you know that nowadays you are only 10, but within 1 or 1.5 years you will be 20 or 30, take more space now, even sublet it to other startups to reduce the costs, and then you will avoid the future costs of moving from one office to another. The costs of moving offices cost a lot of money, and it's not just the truck that will take all the computers. We are talking about all the infrastructure. We are talking about many other issues. So think about the rapid growth of a startup and take it into your considerations while you are budgeting and while you are planning your cash flow, and see how much money do you need now. Okay? And as we said, growth based on the growth of a headcount of the people. And why did I write it here, headcount expenses? I have a question. Do you know what is the difference between gross salary and an employer cost? Okay. 30%. Another question. Let's assume that you want to hire a good programmer. Okay? How much money you want to pay him on a monthly basis? 20, 30, 30,000? Okay. Okay, just the idea. How much money you will put in the budget?
I should put more than that.
How much? Okay. Nowadays in Israel, it's 30% on top. It means that if you want to pay him 10,000, you should consider it as 13. Many budgets that I saw, all the expenses, and we are talking about, as we said before, 75% of your total expense. Okay? 75% of the total budget is downgraded within 30%. Later on in the example, I show you how it builds to the 30%, and it can change every day. You know, tomorrow they will decide to increase it, so it will be 35. But be aware of the difference between employer cost and the gross salary. Okay? This is very typical and critical mistake. Okay? And we are not talking about the salaries itself. We are also talking about all the infrastructure and all the headcount expenses, as we spoke before. You want an employee, you need to buy him a laptop, you need to buy him, I don't know, cell phone, a car, whatever, even furnitures, even whatever. So once you calculate the headcount, you should take in your consideration not just the direct salary. Okay? This is very important. Cash flow versus profit and loss, it's another mistake, and I'll explain. Profit and loss means the expenses based on accrual base. What it means, accrual base and not cash flow? Think about your external auditors. Okay, they are doing the audit of 2016 through 2017, right? At the end of their job, they will issue you an invoice. Okay? When you are doing your 2016 budget versus actual, Yes, you're taking from your bookkeeping system the trial balance, and you see all the expenses. However, those expenses are only expenses that you already invoiced, that you get invoiced from your suppliers. There are many other expenses that you didn't get any invoice yet. However, you already has the liability. Okay? So keep it in your mind once you are doing your, even monthly, every month, whenever you do the budget versus actual report, make sure that all the expenses are within the budget. Okay? Because even if you see at your bank account 1 million shekels, it doesn't mean that you can use them now because you already make some liabilities for that. Okay? Last and not least, we are talking about complicated Excels or simple Excels. Nowadays, 90% of the CFOs, entrepreneurs, etc., using Excel as the tool for creating the budget. You can find few nice and good softwares that you can use to build your Excel. I can even recommend one. It's called Budgeta. If you Google it, you find. But still, 90% is using Excel. We are using Excel as well. When you are using Excel, which is a great software, it is also a dangerous software. First of all, make it simple. Make it simple because if you will not be the one that will handle the budget later on, you need to make sure that someone that will open the computer, get into the Excel, within few minutes you will be able to understand exactly what were your assumptions, what is the budget, how you calculate each one of these expenses. Don't make complicated formulas within one cell. Okay, make it simple. If you got some assumptions, put them aside, that everybody will be able to see it. I'll show you that in a minute in the example I'm talking about. But again, think about simple Excel that someone can move from it. Even you sometimes can't remember what you did before 6 months ago. Okay? So before we move to the example, let's make a quick summary. By the way, do you have any question yet? No. Okay. We spoke about currency. Don't forget to split and to allocate the right currencies according to your operation. Period of time. Make it for an annual as a tool base. And if you are talking about raising money, the first month is not January. The first month is the money. It's the time that the money come to the company. It means the first month of operation. Okay, it's also important. So sometimes you can find Excels that send to investors and it states January, February. It's not. It's the first month from funding. Okay, so this is the period. Growth. Remember the rapid growth of a startup. Remember how quick things can be changed, and they will. So take it in your calculations, in your budgeting. Headcount expenses. Remember this 30%. This is the most critical mistake, but all the rest that you spoke about. Cash flow and P&L. I mean, not on a cash base, but remember all the expenses that you didn't get an invoice yet. Okay? And the Excel should be very simple and very easy to manage and to work with. Okay? Now, I'll go to the Excel and I show you a few examples about budgeting. Okay? כמה זמן יש לנו? Okay. I'm sitting down. מישהו יודע איך עוברים מהפאורפוינט לאקסל? פה? מה? אקסל פתוח, הנה הוא פה, איך אני עובר מפה לזה? הנה, מצוין. אוקיי, thank you. It's your inspiration, you know? I'll jump to the we spoke about simple Excel and Excel that can be easily changed. Okay? So for example, in this cell, this one here, you see, if I'll change the US dollar exchange rate from 3.6 to 4, immediately all the expenses will be calculated accordingly. I don't need to go to each cell or each sheet to change it. Once I did it here, it's to the entire Excel. The same is with all the others. If we go to how it looks at the end, remember the period we spoke about. So here it's a budget for 2 years, just for an example. So if I can look at it in any drill down that I want. I can see it on an annual base. I can see it on a quarterly base. Here means Q1, Q2, Q3. And if I want to go even deeper and to see in Q3, the first year of operation, I can drill down to July, for example, or the 7th month of operation, it depends, okay? Now, we try to, by the way, in this sheet, all the data is not printed. Everything comes from all the other background sheets that we made all the calculations and all the assumptions. Here, everything is a calculation and we can explain each figure, okay? So, for example, if we are going to R&D here, I can see what is the payroll related, what is the core expenses, other employees, etc., etc., and I can see it as a lump sum here, the $35,000, I can drill down and see what it comes from. So this is the output. This is the output at the end, and this is the all the figures. But if I want to see how I made it, I will go to let's start with the HR. I promise you to see the 30%. You remember? The 30% employer cost. So. Oops. Here. Here you go. You see, we are talking about severance pay, which is 8.3% per month. By the way, do you know why it's 8.3? The severance pay, פיצויים?
Because 12 months.
Exactly. In Israel, the labor law said that once you fired, you deserve to get 1 month's salary per each year of employment. If you pay 8.3 every month, at the end of the year, it's 1 month's salary. Okay, this is the reason why 8.3.
Pay it in advance. This way you pay it in advance.
Yeah, you paid it to a severance pay on behalf of the employee, and once he is leaving, he's getting paid for. But you pay it on a monthly base. Social insurance is almost 6% nowadays. The social insurance employer part, not the employee part. Okay, it's 6%. Management insurance or pension fund is 5%. Education fund 7.5%, and all the others is vacations and others. Now, as you can see here in the yellow cells, if, for example, tomorrow the management insurance will be not 5% but 10%, all I need to do is to change it here to 10, like that, 10%, and from now on, all the calculations, all the salary, all the payrolls that we will go and see in a minute from the head count is calculated with this 35%. Okay? Here you can see the the salaries that I want to pay. I ask you how much you want to pay to an employer. So here is the salaries that I want to pay. Here, for example, for CEO, it's in shekels. I don't need to think, to translate it to dollars. I put it in shekels, and everything changed according to the exchange rate I put at the beginning. Remember? So, for example, this CEO will get 30,000 per month, and this is his basic salary. On top of that, the social expenses, and then that's the total, etc., etc. You will get car, yes, no. If yes, that's the cost. Cell phone, and as you can see, it's easy to change. I can decide whether we will get or not. Depends on his job title, whatever. Very easy and very easy to understand. If I'll give it to you within seconds, you will be able to do it by your own. Okay, and of course here, for example, here I can decide who are the people in the G&A or in the R&D, etc., and I can decide which month they will start. Once I'll put the month that they will start in, it will start to calculate from this month and not before, but just after. Okay. So this is the sheet that we are talking about, HR. But there are many other expenses, and you should go over all the expenses. It's a long list, and you have to see, because as I said, we are building it bottom up, and we are trying to figure out everything, even how much electricity and municipality taxes we are paying. Okay? So you can go down and see whether there are costs that are employees based. You can see here the employee count. Here the employee count. This is the numbers that came from the other sheet of the head count. And here I got the numbers. And then if I have an expenses that are based on number of employees, for example, even here, we are talking about office expenses, for example, and we are talking about fixed costs. Once we'll have the number of employees, it will calculate it automatically. Okay? So we don't need to put a specific number each month. And there is, as I said, a lot of others, insurance and other HR expenses, professional services, blah, 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 blah. It depends from, and it change from one startup to another, depends on its activities, its needs, etc. But at the end, your investor will get such an P&L, okay? On top of that, you will add the capex. Capex, it's all the expenses that are not profit and loss. In profit and loss, it's only expenses, but not fixed assets. Fixed assets are computers, etc. So we will give him this list plus the capital expenses, and that's the gap that we will have. For example, if we know that at the end of year one, we have minus almost $500,000 US, let's assume that we already put here the capex, okay, $500 US. That's and at the end of this year, we think that, not year, 12 months, we think that we will achieve a major milestone, a place where we can raise money in a higher valuation. So we will look for around $500,000 US right now, okay? And don't forget in any budget to put the management reserve, which is here it's 5%, but you can decide 5-10%. It also makes sense. This reserve is for some kind of mistakes or things that you forgot or something. Take some kind of insurance to make sure that you cover all your costs. Okay? That's it. I hope that it will help you somewhere in the future. And if you have any questions, now it's the time. And if not, it's okay.
So investors will they want to
אני לא שומע אותך.
P&L rather than cash flow.
Hmm?
So investors.
רגע, אני מתקרב אלייך כי אני לא שומע. האקוסטיקה פה, אני מקווה שאתם שמעתם אותי יותר טוב.
So investors will be interested in P&L rather than cash flow.
They will look at the P&L and on top of that the capex. Okay, so it's more or less will be a cash flow base. Think about it. If they will look at on a cash flow, it means that they will miss some kind of expenses that already happens, but you didn't invoice yet. You didn't pay them yet. Okay, it's not enough to look how much money you have in your bank account, as I said before. Okay, but again, it depends on the investor. Most of them will understand the difference between P&L and cash flow base. They will look at on a P&L translated to cash. You know what I mean? But basically, for your needs, make the P&L. Add on top of that the fixed assets, the capital expenses. It's enough.
And what people normally do with their currency risks. What people in Israel do with currency risks.
What is the currency?
What do they do with currency if an entrepreneur in Israel is getting money in US dollars, as you said, and the MNZ is in Israel?
What's the reason or why?
No, what would they, will they take their currency risk or will they, I don't know, what is the
You're talking about an Israeli investors?
No, Israeli entrepreneurs.
תשאלי רגע בעברית כי לא הבנתי אותך.
אני לא בעברית.
No, ask again, seriously.
No, I was just interested what
Yes.
Israeli entrepreneurs are doing to protect themselves from currency risk, like what you said in the beginning, that you worked with someone who got money in US dollars.
Yeah, you're talking about entrepreneurs in the valley?
No,
in the
entrepreneurs
States? Here in Israel? Okay.
They get money in US dollars.
Right, that's what I said. Once you raise money in US dollars, you should convert it to shekels, but not all the fund. You should convert enough money that will cover your needs in shekels.
Right.
Okay?
So they simply just convert money kind of straight away to reduce their risk.
Yes.
She wasn't in this part of the lecture.
Sorry.
Okay. זהו? Thank you very much. Good luck.